Director Wilson is just wrong as a person. Defending the cleaning lady, Mrs. Johnson, who had been doused with a bucket of water, I stood up to my arrogant boss and got demoted for it. You dare talk back to me, woman? That's why this is happening to you. Your career is over. Director Wilson sneered. But then, President Taylor came to my house, looking pale, begging, "Please come back immediately. I need you." In the president's office, bewildered and trying to grasp the situation, I was met by a surprising individual. My name is Megan. Having graduated high school, I started working this year as a new employee in a mid-sized company. I lost my parents in an accident when I was young and only had my grandparents. Even past their retirement age, they worked hard to let me finish high school. "Megan, you're smart. You should go to college," my grandparents urged, but I didn't want to burden them further, so I chose to work instead. To lessen their load, I started living alone when I got the job. The work, filled with new challenges, was tough, but I was motivated to repay my grandparents for raising me. Luckily, my seniors were incredibly kind, always explaining things clearly. Determined not to let them down, I worked hard too. However, there was one presence that unnerved me. My boss, Director Wilson. Arrogant and belligerent, he'd shout at the slightest displeasure. The seniors said he was the president's relative, protected by nepotism, unskilled but untouchable, feared for demoting disliked subordinates. Everyone endured his behavior. Being a high school graduate, a newbie, and a woman, I was an easy target for his stress relief, faced daily with his sarcasm. Others noticed but could only comfort me in his absence. I endured, telling myself this was the working world, not wanting to lose my job and worry my grandparents. If I lost my job, my grandparents would also be worried. Even in such a workplace, someone comforted me. Emily Grace Johnson, the cleaning lady, a gentle, always smiling woman. She'd encourage me whenever I vented about my boss. "Ah, you're working so hard, aren't you?" I always felt inspired to work hard when I thought of Emily, the cleaning lady beloved by everyone, and how she reminded me of my grandmother in the countryside. Emily, though in a different role, was striving just as hard in the same company. I couldn't let a mean boss like Wilson defeat us. I loved Emily for always instilling that fighting spirit in me. But the spiteful Wilson was, of course, harsh on Emily too. One day, while walking inside the office, I came across Emily doing her cleaning. She was mopping the hallway, stepping aside for passing employees. As I was about to greet her, I saw Wilson coming from the opposite direction, instinctively hid. Wilson was looking at his mobile phone while walking, and the other employees were walking around to avoid him. I had a bad feeling. Then it happened. Wilson, engrossed in his phone, kicked a bucket, spilling water from it. Some of the water splashed onto the hem of Wilson's pants and his shoes.
"Damn, that's cold!"
Emily rushed over to him, worried.
"Oh no, are you all right?"
For a moment, I thought, serves you right. But then I remembered that it was Wilson, the mean one. He started making a fuss, even though he was barely wet.
"Hey, old lady, your fault! My clothes and shoes got wet!"
Wilson spat angrily. Clearly, it was Wilson's fault for walking while looking at his phone. Emily had carefully placed the bucket out of the way in the corner of the hallway. I felt angry that Wilson was so upset, especially since he was the one who made more work for Emily.
I'm so sorry,"
Emily said, confused and flustered. Wilson shouted at her.
"I have an important business meeting coming up. What am I supposed to do now?"
I'm so sorry. You got wet. What should we do? Emily, apologizing repeatedly, knelt on the floor and began wiping Wilson's shoes with a clean towel.
It's not about saying sorry, old woman.
While shouting, Wilson grabbed the bucket, still partly filled with water.
Oh, Emily, watch out!
My voice failed to come out as a warning, and Wilson, unbelievably, turned the bucket upside down over Emily's head, who was still kneeling. A considerable amount of water must have been inside. Water dripped from Emily's hair, and she looked stunned, not understanding what had happened.
Now you know how it feels to be drenched like me,
Wilson said with a vile smile to Emily. Seeing Emily soaked through, resembling my grandmother, I couldn't hold back any longer. If staying silent meant witnessing this, I'd rather quit. That's how I felt.
How can you do such a thing? This is too much.
I stepped forward in front of Wilson and Emily and protested as if letting out all the frustration I had been holding back.
Emily is not at fault. It was wrong for you, Director Wilson, to walk while looking at your mobile phone.
I pointed out Wilson's obvious mistake.
I got splashed with water, so I'm the victim here,
Wilson yelled back, but anyone could see who the real victim was in the situation. The commotion drew many employees around.
Even so, throwing a bucket of water on someone is unreasonable. That's downright violence.
What? Do you realize who you're talking to?
Wilson retorted.
Of course, as a person, you're wrong, Director.
Though he yelled, Wilson was speechless in the face of my unwavering confrontation, something he wasn't used to. Wilson silently offered a handkerchief to the drenched Emily. Seeing it was far from enough, she glared at the standing Wilson. As a crowd gathered, making it awkward, he shouted,
"You better be ready for what's coming after saying that to me,"
and quickly walked away. Thank you, Megan. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes, usually always smiling, but now looking sad. It pained me to see her like this, wondering if Megan is okay after saying that. Emily was more concerned about me than herself being wet.
I'm fine, don't worry.
Though I was nervous inside for speaking my mind to Wilson for the first time, I maintained composure and helped clean up the spilled water. After parting with Emily and returning to work, I found Wilson's usual seat empty. He must have gone to the president's office to tattle on me. I might lose my job over this. I worried but also felt I haven't done anything wrong. Expressing my thoughts to Wilson had oddly cleared my mind, helping me focus on work. The next day, fears came true. I was suddenly issued a transfer order to the countryside. Stunned, Wilson approached my desk, gloating.
"That's what you get for talking back to me, a woman. Your life's over now."
Watching his triumphant face, frustration welled up in me. Looking around, naturally no one dared to stand up to Wilson. Everyone pretended not to see or hear.
So, this is how the company is?
I had anticipated this to some extent, but the indifference of my colleagues was equally shocking. Feeling dejected, I walked aimlessly through the office corridors. Emily rushed to me, apologizing frantically.
Megan, I heard what happened. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to make it up to you. I feel terrible.
Her distress reminded me of my grandparents in the countryside. Not wanting to worry her, I stood tall and confidently said, "It's okay, Emily. I'm happy to get away from that manager. It's a relief not to be fired. I've always wanted to tell him off." I smiled bravely, but Emily still looked worried.
I wish there was something I could do.
Busy days followed. Even with my transfer decided, work continued as usual. Wilson, to harass me, piled on more tasks, slowing down my progress. But being busy kept me from dwelling on my gloom. Emily, since learning about my transfer, lost her usual smile, often lost in thought, visibly downcast. I wanted to see her smile again before I left.
How could I bring back her smile? That was my only concern. With just a year at the company, I had a fair amount to hand over. I finished all the transfer procedures the day before my move. As I was packing up, Wilson appeared.
I'm so happy. I won't have to see your face from tomorrow. Poor thing. Spending your youth in some dull countryside. But do your best. Though you'll probably just go back home soon.
He taunted till the end. His words constricted my heart. I hadn't yet told my grandparents about my transfer. I won't see Grandma and Grandpa for a while, I thought, bowing out and leaving the company. The next morning, ready to depart from my new assignment, I opened my door to find a black luxury car parked outside. Startled by the car, like something out of a drama, a familiar yet unfamiliar man stepped out. Have I seen him before? Then it hit me. Looking closely, it was the company president. Why is the president here? Shocked, I froze in place. The president, with a pale face, seemed frantic.
Please come back to the office right away. I beg you.
He said this, bowing his head. Seeing the rarely seen company president bowing left me bewildered and unable to grasp the situation. Impatient, the president raised his head, urging,
Just come with me.
He pushed me into the car. Seated, the car started moving. While I couldn't understand what was happening, I thought, this seat is really comfortable. As I looked out the window, escaping reality, we arrived at the company. Still not understanding the situation, the president led me to his office. Entering the office, I saw a well-dressed man and an elegantly attired older woman sitting on the sofa. As I entered, they stood and approached me. That woman? Emily? To my surprise, the elegantly dressed woman in the president's office was Emily. She looked refined and beautiful, a stark contrast to her usual work clothes. Megan, sorry to startle you, Emily said with her usual smile. Confused by the gathering of these unfamiliar people, I was dumbstruck again. The president, upon entering, seemed apologetic towards the suited man, while Emily smiled at me. The well-dressed man changed the uneasy atmosphere.
First,
he said, offering me his business card. It bore the name of a major corporation, a key business partner influencing my company's fate. The name was Lucas Benjamin Johnson, with the title CEO.
My mom always speaks highly of you.
President Johnson greeted me, and I looked at Emily, who nodded with a smile. Then I realized Emily was Johnson's mother. Emily, who always loved cleaning, chose to work in cleaning so as not to rely entirely on her son, who is the president. It happened to be at the company where I work. For her, it was convenient to work while keeping an eye on her son's business partners. Emily knew of Wilson's bad reputation, but felt helpless and had been troubled for a long time. However, after I was transferred for defending her, she consulted her son to help me. Emily never used her position as the president's mother for work issues before, but this time she did, feeling a bit embarrassed as she explained. When I was splashed with water, I was really sad, but so happy Megan helped me, she said, holding my hands warmly, spreading a gentle feeling in my heart. President Johnson, watching us with a calm gaze, turned to our president with a stern look, saying,
I cannot continue business with a company that transfers young employees for doing the right thing. We'll need to reevaluate our relationship. I'm terribly sorry. This will never happen again. I will ensure it.
Our president, red-faced, desperately apologized. Hearing myself referred to as a young person who did the right thing made me happy. I believed I had done the right thing. Yet after being transferred and receiving no support from anyone, I started doubting if I was fit for the corporate world. But Johnson's words gave me confidence for the first time that I hadn't been wrong. Following these events, I was allowed to return to the company. But what made me happier than returning was hearing Wilson had been transferred to the countryside in my stead. A month has passed, and the one shirking Wilson, who had pushed work onto others, is now considered useless in the new location. Rumors are he might soon be fired. The once arrogant Wilson seems to have lost his spirit. As for Emily, she continues to clean with her usual smile. Everyone talks to her as before, but I know her true identity. Emily asked me to keep it a secret, so it remains between just the two of us. Good morning.
Oh, good morning, Megan. You're looking cheerful today as well.
This daily exchange gives me energy. And while other employees greet each other similarly, the president is the only one who makes a deep, almost 90-degree bow before heading to his office. Knowing why he does this makes me smile a bit, but the other employees, who don't know the reason, initially cared, but now nobody seems to mind. Our once autocratic president has changed his ways, and the workplace has become much more pleasant since Wilson left. Originally, Wilson was the cause of a negative atmosphere, but all the senior staff were kind and helpful, allowing them to work as they wished. A female department head who transferred from another division has been a positive influence. Unlike Wilson, who used to dump work on others, she willingly takes on unfinished tasks and checks if anyone needs help. It's become a friendly and more female-friendly workplace, making everyone more enthusiastic than ever. When I first joined this company, I thought enduring hardships was part of society. Seeing others put up with unfair treatment for the sake of their jobs, I believed I had to do the same. But my experience with Wilson and Emily changed my mind about enduring the unreasonable. That courage I found then has transformed our circumstances so much. Since that incident, I've stopped tolerating nonsense and started speaking my mind clearly. Enduring isn't what society is about. A better society is something we must build ourselves. And now, I finally have juniors to mentor. Teaching others is a great learning experience. Since then, my days have been filled with motivation and have started to shine. Alright, with my next paycheck, I'll take my grandparents on a trip. I can now proudly meet them. I feel thrilled at the thought of showing my grandparents how much I've grown.